Greetings everyone, this is Jairus, and once again I'm with you with another episode of the playlist. So today I'm going to be covering a bit of Evochron Legacy. Now what we'll be doing here is I'm actually going to be going through the training and show you some of the mechanics that they have in there. Now it is narrated a little bit, so I'll go ahead and add my feedback in after certain sections. What I'm going to be showing you isn't the entirety of the training because it's quite long. And there's no need to getting into things like base building and things like that. That really doesn't involve like the mechanics that I really want to focus on. So I'll try to cut it down to things I feel are important and try to keep it as short as possible. But I do want you to see this stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Welcome to Basic Flight, Systems, and Combat Training. This series of training sessions will provide you with detailed instructions on how to control your spacecraft, manage ship systems, navigate, build, trade, mine, and use weapon systems. You can skip most training stages by pressing Enter. You can also return to a previous training stage by pressing Alt-Enter. Some stages may require an action on your part before continuing.
Alright, now before we get into this, I just thought I'd go ahead and mention I'm not going to be using the Track IR in this session. The game does support Track IR. It does it very well, actually. It's listed in the options. So the reason I'm not going to do that is I just want to keep everything that we're focused on directly in front of the screen, and I tend to look around a lot, and it might be distracting from what we're trying to do.
For this first session, we'll cover flight basics. The default flight control will be set to the mouse if no joystick or gamepad is detected. You can change the control setup as desired in the options menu. For mouse flight control, you can select either a point mode or a direction mode. The point mode will let you control your ship using a visual marker on the screen. The direction mode will let you control your ship based on how much you move the mouse.
So that's a bit like relative mode and a virtual stick, basically.
We'll start with velocity control. If you're using the mouse for flight control, you can use the wheel to adjust the velocity setting, or the default 1 to 0 keys to set it by percentage. The default plus and minus, or W and S keys, can also be used to trim the velocity setting. You'll notice the SET indicator will reflect whatever level of velocity you select, while the FVL indicator will display your ship's actual forward velocity level. Increase the forward velocity setting to maximum now, and observe how the ship's computer will apply forward thrust until the FVL value matches the selected SET value. Good. Now reduce your forward velocity setting to 0. If you're using either the mouse or keyboard flight control mode, you can hit the backspace key to immediately set velocity to 0. In addition to setting a desired velocity level in the positive range, the flight control system also includes the ability to select a negative velocity level. The plus indicator on the ship's status display will change to the letter R to indicate that the full range of velocity control has been enabled. Activate the full positive and negative range of available velocity control now by pressing the default right shift key. With the full range mode enabled, the middle SET level will be 0 velocity, while lower levels will be negative and higher levels will be positive. The trim controls will let you select SET levels in either the positive or negative range. You can disable the full range velocity control mode now if you want to by pressing the right shift key a second time. In addition to your main engines, your ship also has a series of thrusters at various points on the hull. These thrusters are automatically controlled by your onboard computer to help keep your ship moving in the direction it is facing. But you also manually control the thrusters to rotate your ship and perform maneuvers. Use the current flight control device to yaw left and right now. Next, pitch up and down. Good. The last rotation control is roll. For keyboard and mouse flight control modes, use the default Q and E keys for rolling left and right. Roll left and right now.
Now before I do that and it kicks into the next section, what they were talking about with that particular throttle control was that for a lot of people who have HOTUSes and things like that, when you set to that mode, when you have your throttle in the middle, let me just go ahead and hit right shift here to show you. Right now my throttle's set to 0, but when I hit the right shift, it goes to -610. See, I had to move it right to the middle, which would normally be 50% forward, to set it to 0. This creates a nice situation where you can have a full range forward and back on one single line on an acceleration bar, being like a slider or an actual HOTUS. It's really cool. I like it.
In addition to rotation and velocity control, you can also move your ship directly left, right, up, or down by activating the horizontal or vertical movement thrusters. On and off control for these thrusters is available using the default A and D keys for left and right horizontal movement, while the Z and X keys are used for up and down vertical movement. You can also add variable horizontal and vertical thruster control if the flight control device you're using supports enough access channels. Try moving horizontally left and right now.
Now basically I have mimicked my Star Citizen dual T16000 control setup in this game. It does it very well.
The longer you activate a thruster, the faster you will fly in the opposite direction. When you disengage a thruster, your ship's computer will automatically apply counter thrusters to realign its course with the direction the nose of your ship is facing. Now try moving up and down using the vertical thruster controls. Again, the default key controls for up and down vertical thrusters are Z and X. Well done. Flying in space involves mastering the effects of inertia. The Inertial Dampening System, or IDS, will help keep flight control simple by constantly using your thrusters automatically to keep your ship moving in the direction it's facing. The more momentum your ship has in a particular direction, the longer it will take for the IDS to alter your ship's movement toward a new heading. When you want to bypass the system and allow your ship to continue moving in a certain direction, press the IDS on-off key, default spacebar. The inertial label will be visible on your ship's status display when the IDS is off. Practice by building up speed in the direction you're facing, then turn off the IDS and rotate around a bit to see how inertia will let you continue moving in the original direction. Turn the IDS back on to resume automatic thruster control. The IDS also supports adjustable throttle scaling. There are 9 levels you can select, and the current level is displayed at the right of the IDS indicator on the lower left cockpit display. X1 is the default level and provides the lowest level of throttle input range that is good for situations that can require rapid course changes, such as combat and docking. X9 is the highest and provides the widest range of throttle input, but it can take much longer for your ship to adjust course at higher speed settings. Try increasing the IDS scale value now, using the default numpad 9 key, then change the throttle SET velocity level to see how the scale level impacts the input range. Return the IDS scale value to 1 when you are finished, using the default numpad 7 key.
Now what this is, instead of just having like a cruise mode, you have a scale increase. So right now basically I'm doing 5,499 meters per second. Now it holds it at this speed when you're in the normal flight mode. If I was to turn off, basically go to a decoupled mode on it, I believe it should start, yeah, look, so now I can start exceeding. Because basically what you're doing with this is that there's no speed caps in Evochron. It's more fuel caps. So I can keep accelerating like this all day long. Want to boost? I mean, I can build up a ridiculous amount of speed. Now, basically, I could just cut this back down, turn off inertial, and the ship will try to slow itself down.
A high level of thrust from the main engines. Use it sparingly, as it consumes a much greater amount of fuel, but it can be very useful in combat when you need to escape or change direction quickly. To engage the afterburner, press and hold the default tab key. Practice using the afterburner now by accelerating to twice your ship's maximum cruise speed, then release the key to disable the afterburner.
Gotta get course corrected here.
That completes the basic flight control training section. The next section will cover cockpit displays and HUD heads-up display systems next.
Now their HUD systems I really like. I know they look really simple here, but simple isn't always a bad thing. Most of the information you need is on these 3 screens, and these screens have variable modes depending upon what you need. So just a very clean system. And of course you can see things on top, and I'll get into all that as well.
Combat, environment, and status information is projected onto your helmet's visor as a heads-up display, and on the 3 cockpit displays. In its default full mode, referred to as Mode 2, the HUD includes readouts for gravity, altitude, weapon energy, hull damage, and speed around the gun sight in the middle. HUD Mode 2 also includes motion ladders to help provide a sense of relative movement, along with a pitch ladder to indicate the orientation of your ship. Weapon firing mode and IDS status indicators are also displayed above the gun sight. The HUD can be turned off entirely or use a reduced display mode, referred to as Mode 1, It removes the indicators around the gun sight, as well as the motion ladders and pitch ladder. Try cycling through the HUD modes now using the default H key. Return to HUD mode 2 when finished. In Mode 2, velocity information is displayed at 5 locations around the rim of the gun sight, in the middle of the heads-up display. At the lower right of the gun sight are the FVL and SET velocity indicators. As explained in the basic flight control section, FVL indicates the forward velocity level of your ship, while SET indicates the set level of forward velocity you've selected for your ship to fly at. Directly above the FVL and SET indicators, in the middle right of the gun sight, is the HVL indicator, which stands for horizontal velocity level. It provides the speed your ship is traveling at horizontally, relative to its current orientation. Likewise, the VVL indicator on the opposite side of the gun sight provides the vertical speed your ship is traveling at. At the bottom of the gun sight is the AVL indicator, which stands for absolute velocity level. This velocity indicator will provide the total speed your ship is traveling at, regardless of direction. In the upper left corner, GVL stands for gravity velocity level. It indicates the combined effect gravity is having on your spacecraft by providing the level of velocity your ship is being pulled at by the nearest gravitational force. It is not a force factor gauge, but instead displays the overall velocity offset level gravity is imparting on your ship. The closer you are to an object applying gravity to your ship, and/or the more powerful the gravitational pull, the higher this velocity indicator will read. The IDS will attempt to stabilize any velocity factors relative to the direction your ship is traveling, while also accounting for any gravity offset. This allows your ship to maintain a consistent velocity relative to an object's pull on it. If you turn off the IDS, the computer will stop compensating, and gravity will be allowed to accelerate your ship unrestricted in the direction it is being pulled. It's important to learn to watch these velocity indicators, as they will help you keep track of what direction your ship is traveling at, as well as how fast. Such information is critical when performing maneuvers for combat, navigating obstacles in space, and while performing docking maneuvers.
Now, dealing with the gravity issue, of course, there's a planet over here on my left. And, of course, as you get closer to it, the gravity have a greater effect. If you're doing the inertial mode, basically your ship can just drift on its own and get pulled down towards the planet. There's actually been a station in this game that I found that it's kind of in a gas field, and it's in the, I guess, really close to the sun. And one of the first times I was there, I thought something was wrong because my ship kept drifting. Instead of just going directly into the station, it kept drifting really badly. Well, the station is close enough to the sun that it actually you're getting pulled in by the sun. So gravity in this game has a real tangible effect on the way that things fly, and that's very impressive. That's something I think that we could see a lot more of in Star Citizen, hopefully down the road.
The upper right corner of the gun sight indicates the current altitude of your ship relative to the nearest planet or moon. The indicator won't activate until you are fairly close to such an object. The lower left corner of the gun sight provides indicators for weapon energy status and hull damage level in percentages. At the top of the gun sight are indicators for the weapon firing mode, IDS status, MDTS, and heat signature, which will be reviewed later in the Combat Weapons System section. There is one quick detail to point out in this section for the IDS mode indicator here. It will display IDS when the system is on, or INERT when the system is off, and your ship is drifting in inertial mode. The pitch ladder is displayed on each side of the gun sight and indicates the nose angle of your ship relative to the galactic ecliptic constant. Knowing the angle of your ship's nose can be useful when navigating to or from an object in space that is above or below your position. The HUD also provides a flight path marker, or FPM, that indicates the actual flight path of your ship relative to the direction its nose is facing. The FPM will not be aligned with the center of the gun sight when your ship's course is offset from the direction it's facing due to gravity or drifting. This can be a useful gauge to watch when trying to align your ship's course down a particular pathway for docking or when navigating obstacles. The FPM is available in both HUD Mode 1 and 2. The top part of the HUD includes the compass, flight timer, control thruster indicators, and several menu options. The compass indicates the heading of your ship relative to the galactic ecliptic constant the same way the pitch ladder is calibrated. The compass is useful when determining a course to an object in space as well as when docking. The space station hangars are always aligned with the galactic ecliptic for easier docking navigation. The control and thruster indicators display your ship's flight controller input status and thruster activity. Each indicator panel has a series of bars to display the level of input for control or the level of output for thrusters. They also provide a top view profile and a side view profile for visual reference. The top view is displayed in white, while the side view is displayed in blue. The top view indicates yaw and forward reverse levels, while the side view indicates pitch and vertical levels. It may take some time to familiarize yourself with these indicators, but they can be useful in providing a quick overview of what your ship is reacting to and how. Menu options are on each side of the control and thruster indicators. To select a menu option, simply use the mouse pointer and click on the desired button. If you're using the mouse for flight control, you can hold down the Alt key to suspend flight control so you can move the pointer to select one of the menu options. You can also optionally press both Alt keys to toggle locking the flight control mode on or off. On the far left of the menu panel is the target menu. Go ahead and open the target menu now. The target menu lets you select a target or change the 3D radar's targeting modes. These options are also available with key or button controls, but this menu is available for a mouse click option as well. The top 4 options let you select a ship target. The bottom 3 are for radar options. Radar hostiles will toggle the hostile only mode for the radar. Radar range will toggle through the available range settings. Radar mode will toggle between the 3D and 2D display modes. Click on the target menu button again to close the menu when you are finished viewing it. On the far right of the menu panel is the Fleet Options menu. Go ahead and open the Fleet Options menu now. The Fleet Options menu lets you send an order to other ships in your fleet. In single player, the order is given to computer-controlled ships that you have recruited to be part of your fleet. In multiplayer, the order is sent to players who are part of the same faction you are allied with. In single player, additional fleet selection and display options are also available. You can select a specific ship to issue an order to, or send an order to your entire fleet. You can also review the shield and damage status of each ship in your fleet, or review the order each ship is currently following. Click on the Fleet Options button again to close the menu when you are finished viewing it. Other options along the top of the HUD give you access to the console's autopilot and formation options. The formation option on the right side of the compass will keep your ship in close formation with any friendly or moderate ship you have targeted. The other options will be covered in later training sections specific to their topic categories. Next, we'll review the 3 main cockpit displays. The lower left cockpit display shows details on the status of your ship. On the top left are the 6 velocity gauges that are also available around the gun sight in HUD Mode 2. The gun sight readouts are useful for combat situations, when you don't want to have to look away from the action for very long. When using HUD Mode 1 though, these readouts are still available in this status display. Below the velocity indicators on the left side of the status display are readouts for altitude, IDS mode, fuel, countermeasures, CM, and damage levels for navigation, weapon, and engine subsystems. At the top right of the status display is the current energy setting indicator. Your ship divides available energy between your weapon system and shield system. The current energy setting is shown next to the letters PWR. The setting will range from a value of -5 to +5. The Combat Weapons System section will cover how to use this option later. The WPN indicator displays the current energy charge status of your primary weapon system. The HUL indicator displays the current damage status of your ship's hull. The secondary list displays any secondary weapons or items you have installed, and the weapon or item that is currently armed and ready is at the top of the list in the number 1 slot. The shield display provides the status of your ship's shield arrays. Directly below the shield displays the current weapon firing mode indicator. The middle cockpit displays your 3D radar. It provides direction and range information on certain objects in space. Green dots indicate friendly ships, yellow dots indicate moderate ships, and red dots indicate hostile ships. When red dots appear on the radar, a warning sound will help bring the threat to your attention. Blue dots indicate stations, red dots with small brackets indicate inbound missiles, white dots indicate cargo, and purple dots indicate unknown or miscellaneous objects. The radar offers 2 primary display modes, 3D and 2D. When in 3D mode, the letters DIR will appear in the mode indicator at the lower right of the radar display. When in 2D mode, the letters DIS will appear in the mode indicator. The 3D mode is primarily for direction information, while the 2D mode is primarily for distance information. You can toggle between the modes using the default numpad plus key. Observe both modes now by switching between each of them, then return to the default 3D DIR mode. The 3D mode displays radar contacts from behind and above your ship's position, using a spherical layout to provide directional reference information. The dots include an attached line that points away from the center of the radar sphere in 3D mode, which helps you determine if an object is behind or ahead of you. The blue highlight brackets in the middle at the front of the 3D radar spherical frame indicate the forward direction of your ship, so you can fly toward an object by bringing its corresponding dot into these brackets. An object's range is displayed by the number of lines surrounding its dot. No lines indicate a distant object. One set of lines indicate a medium-range object, while two sets of lines indicate a close-range object. The radar's 2D mode displays radar contacts from an overhead perspective. It's best used when your ship is flying relatively level and provides more specific range information on various objects in the area versus the 3D radar mode. You can filter out radar contacts by range in either mode for a less cluttered view in crowded space, or to prioritize close-range targets only. Ranges are available in 2K intervals, spanning 2K to 10K. Observe the various range modes now by toggling through each of them using the default numpad enter key, then return to the 10K range mode when you are finished. You can also limit the contacts displayed on the radar with the hostile mode. When enabled using the default numpad minus key, only hostile ships in range will be displayed on the radar. The total hostile contacts, THC, mode, and range indicators will change color to red when in hostile mode. The range to the current selected nav point is shown in the upper left corner of the radar display, above NAV. The display at the lower right of the cockpit shows details about the ship you are currently targeting. It can also display a list of ships in range, or be turned off entirely to avoid accidentally targeting a friendly ship in the area. To toggle the different display modes, press the default G key now. When finished, return the display to the target detail mode. When you have a ship targeted, its class, ID, faction affiliation, threat level, THR, forward speed, FPL, range, RNG, shield levels, direction, and hull damage will be shown on the display. If you've installed a cargo scanning device on your ship, you'll also see what's in the targeted ship's cargo bay once you're in range. That concludes this training section on the cockpit displays and HUD.
Alright, so basically, what you can see here, everything you need to know has been displayed very, very well. Especially when it comes to the target indicators. The fact that, I can just go ahead and look at all the targets in the area here and see what's out there. I can filter out between friendlies are gone. Of course, in Star Citizen, friendlies are a bit of an unknown quantity because you don't really know. I mean, anyone can attack anybody. So, but factionally based, the odds are that someone might be listed as friendly in Star Citizen if they're associated or like in your same guild or whatnot. So, but yeah, this is just a very smooth HUD across the board, and it provides everything you need, everything you want to see, everything you need to know, and it doesn't take any looking around the cockpit to pull it off.
This section will cover the basics of space station docking. Space stations align their entrances, also referred to as gates, in a fixed pattern aligned with the galactic ecliptic. So to approach a hangar entrance, you want to line up with one of the docking angles and keep pitch at 0. Hangar entrance 1 uses heading 180, entrance 2 uses 252, entrance 3 uses 324, entrance 4 uses 36, and entrance 5 uses 108. Cyan-colored markers are displayed on the compass tape at the top of the HUD to help guide you on the available docking angles. Docking is largely self-regulated, and other pilots will generally announce their arrivals and departures. The station's dockmaster will also often inform you if the hangar entrance you are currently closest to is clear or has traffic. Once you are in range of the hangar, docking lights and an ILS guide will appear. The ILS guide will be red when your approach angle is not lined up with one of the entrances, and will be green when your approach angle is correct. When docking, pick one of the entrances and fly into it using the flashing docking lights as a virtual runway guide into the hangar entrance. Generally, stations are built away from obstacles and environmental factors, but on occasion, you may need to account for any conditions such as gravity or objects obscuring a docking path. You will now be placed at a location near the local station to practice docking. Go ahead and practice docking with this station. Again, select an entrance and approach from a distance, then line up with it using the compass and pitch ladder as needed. Watch for other ships and keep your speed around 1,000 or less to keep course corrections manageable. Once you've entered an entrance, fly toward the center of the hangar that is indicated by the docking area label. Once you are close enough, the station's tractor beam will lock your ship in place and automatically open the inventory console. You'll pass through the low-powered shield band when you enter or exit a station. While not a weapon shield, it does protect the sensitive internal structure of the station from micrometeors, scan ships as they pass through, and can be used as a visual marker for the middle region of the hangar.
Now I'm actually coming in on inertial mode. It's one of the things about Evochron is fuel limitations. And fuel is expensive. So it's one of those things that you want to go ahead and get yourself lined up and just kind of let space do what space does.
Docking tractor beam engaged.
Once docked, reduce set velocity to 0, or turn off the IDS to avoid wasting fuel. Otherwise, your engines will fight against the pull of the tractor beam and unnecessarily burn fuel. Also, make sure to avoid accidentally firing weapons. At this point, you can begin trade activities, search for available contracts, repair or refuel your ship, look for crew members, rearrange ship loadouts, or enter the station for shelter and more options. To depart, simply close the inventory console, default F3 key, and fly out through one of the available gates. Go ahead and depart the station now.
Docking tractor beam disengaged.
That concludes this training section on space station docking. The next training section will cover planet descents and city docking. This section will cover descending to the surface of a planet and docking with a city. First, here are some important points to remember. When approaching a planet, make sure to keep your speed at around 3,000 or less to avoid excessive friction that risks depleting your ship's shields and eventually damaging its hull. You can also boost energy to your shield system and augment energy to the forward shield array as needed to perform a high-speed descent. Atmospheric density increases as you descend, so if you need to make an emergency descent, you can fly at high speed while at high altitude and reduce your speed to safer levels as the atmosphere becomes thicker at lower altitudes. But generally, you want to keep your speed in a safer range on regular descents.
Uh-oh. Atmospheric density is higher as you get lower. If someone better contact CIG about that one.
The flight characteristics of your spacecraft will change dramatically as you enter a planet's atmosphere. As you descend from the vacuum of space into an atmosphere, your ship's wings will become a factor in the physics of flight. They will generate some lift, which will help keep your spacecraft in the air as long as it flies forward at a high enough velocity. Fly too slowly, and your ship will generally stall and fall nose down toward the terrain. Modern spacecraft do not perform an atmospheric flight as traditional aircraft did in the past. They do not use ailerons, elevators, rudders, or flaps. Instead, they rely exclusively on their thruster systems to perform roll, pitch, and yaw access maneuvers. While their thruster systems are very powerful, a spacecraft still needs to fly forward in an atmosphere in order to generate enough lift and perform maneuvers. So always remember to keep your ship's velocity at a minimum of around 250 to achieve this objective.
I find this interesting because in a lot of Star Citizen ships, they don't have flaps and things like that. So here there's like an acknowledgement that flaps have been replaced by thrusters in atmospheric flight. And their explanation of how they're incorporated.
When a spacecraft is confined to the physical restrictions of an atmosphere, the attributes of its mass, aerodynamic shape, and engine performance can be pronounced. Heavier ships can be significantly more difficult to maneuver and be slower than their lighter weight counterparts. So it's important to consider these factors when designing a ship for the role you want to play. Your ship will now be placed near the local planet and at an angle approaching the main trade city on the surface. Descend into the atmosphere and dock at the city's docking port. City docking ports are usually placed near the middle of building structures.
Now, that is a factor we're not going to get into because it's a bit further down the line. We'll get to it eventually as we play the game. You can't. Every ship that you fly in this game, you design. You choose the parts. You set where they're on your ship, their orientation, their size. You can stretch them out or whatnot. So when you design a ship in this game, it's really the way you want it to look.
While descending, you may want to practice maneuvering your ship around through some turns at different speeds to get a feel for how its flight characteristics change as the atmosphere becomes thicker. When you're ready, approach the city and fly to the docking port. As with space station docking, an ILS marker will appear to help guide you to the nearest city. It will generally keep you at a higher altitude, well above terrain features, until you get close enough to the city for a direct descent approach. As you descend, you may notice that your ship's flight path marker begins to drift away from the direction its nose is facing. Even though your ship is pointed in one direction, the FPM indicates a slight amount of off-center drift. This is normal and is due to the fact that the planet will begin to carry you along with its rotation, causing your ship to drift relative to the galactic constant. Your ship's computer will continue to calibrate velocity to the SET level you specify, regardless of the amount of drift being imparted to your ship by the planet's rotation. So when you set velocity to 2000, the computer will apply enough engine power to achieve that speed relative to how your ship is now being carried along by gravity and the planet's rotation. This also means that your indicated AVL velocity will likely differ at various angles, since it is calibrated to the galactic constant as well. This way, you can quickly gauge what kind of effect such environmental factors are having on your ship's performance and position. As you approach the city, watch out for obstacles that may block your path to the docking port. Ships arriving or departing, terrain features, and even city buildings can all be factors you may have to contend with during a descent to a city. Descents that are close to direct drops from space can be the most efficient, if not scenic, routes to take. Once you've docked, make sure to set velocity to 0, or turn off the IDS to avoid wasting fuel.
Now, with this game, you can descend too quickly and explode. So it's one of those things that you really have to pay attention to. In fact, also when you're doing jumps or micro jumps in the system, because a lot of it is set manually, you can also do the same thing. You can warp into a planet and, die. So the planets are basic, but all this was made by one guy, and all the planets are procedural. Not really. I don't know if procedural, but is the wrong term. But you can fly down to all of them. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. And like building space stations, you can also build cities. So you can set up your own places that AI will trade with and things like that. Kind of using that as a constant money flow. Of course, they can also get attacked. But that's all part of the what's going on in the game. Also, when you're doing harvesting, like mining and whatnot, if you actually use a mining laser at clouds, you harvest water, and of course, just in the air, you can harvest air. There's all sorts of different things that you can harvest depending upon what you're pointing your laser at.
Docking tractor beam engaged.
Nicely done. City docking ports work much like space station hangars. Although they don't have storage hangars like space stations, they still offer engineering lab, weapon lab, and shipyard capabilities. Some trade benefits can also apply at cities. That concludes this training section on planet descents and city docking. The next training sections will cover the navigation, build, inventory, and trade consoles.
Alright, so the most important thing here I want to cover, I think, left is the navigation. Because right now, as you know, in Star Citizen, basically navigation is limited to just the points that we select. I like the way that resolved the 3D navigation in this. It's very simple. It works very well. Let's get into it.
This section will review the available consoles. To open the navigation console, click on the nav icon at the top of the heads-up display, or press the default F1 key. Again, if you are using the mouse for flight control, you can temporarily suspend flight control to click on HUD menu options by holding the Alt key down. Open the navigation console now. This console lets you manage open space navigation and jump drive travel with a versatile interface. In the middle of the console menu is the nav map itself. The map displays the sector you are currently in, along with local object details. Your current position is displayed on the map with a green arrow. The map system divides 3D space into cubes called sectors. A coordinate system is used to pinpoint a location within each sector. In-sector coordinates range from -100,000 to +100,000 from one side of the sector to the other on the X, Y, and Z axis. In the default top view map mode, the X coordinate direction runs left to right on the map, and Z runs up and down. The central point on the map represents the center of the sector, which is located at X0 and Z0. You can also optionally view the sector from behind. Click on the rear view button now to flip the map to view the current sector from behind. In this view mode, up and down on the map represents the Y coordinate direction, indicating the elevation of objects in range within the sector. Your ship's position is indicated by a green dot, so you can quickly gauge if an object is above or below your position by comparing its icon with the marker for your ship. Click on Top View now to return the map to its default orientation. The current navigation point is displayed on the nav map with the yellow X symbol. To select a new navigation point, simply left-click on the location you want. In top view, selecting a nav point on the map will set the X and Z coordinates, while in rear view, selecting a point on the map will set the X and Y coordinates. Practice using the navigation console by clicking on a point located near X40,000, Z40,000 in the current top view mode. When you left-click on the nav map in top view mode to set the X and Z coordinates, you can later adjust the Y coordinate or elevation by either using the rear view map mode or by clicking on the Y coordinate value located under the destination position heading and manually typing in a value. Using either option, set the Y coordinate value to 40,000 now. The distance to the selected nav point is displayed at the bottom of the destination position section of the console. To the left of the distance are the range specifications of your ship's installed jump drive. The navigation system is linked to your ship's jump drive, so any navigation point you select can quickly be reached if it's in range. You can activate the jump drive to reach the nav point with either the default F8 key or by clicking on the launch button in the navigation console. If your jump drive can reach a distant point you select in a different sector, you'll be able to quickly jump there. If the distance is beyond what your jump drive can travel to in one jump, the autopilot can engage the jump drive repeatedly until you reach the destination. You can upgrade your fulcrum drive to travel to sectors that are farther away in fewer jumps. Sectors themselves have their own dedicated coordinate system. Coordinates for sectors are designated with the SX, SY, and SZ letters. You can see the values for the sector you are currently in under the current position heading at the upper left side of the navigation console. Likewise, sector coordinates for the selected nav point are also displayed under the destination position heading on the upper right side of the navigation console. Sector borders are displayed on the nav map with white frames, and you can travel to a different sector the same way you can jump to a new location within a sector. To do this, you need to zoom out to view the sectors in the area using either the zoom out button on the right side of the console or by scrolling the mouse wheel down. The navigation system will always auto-center the nav map for you when you zoom out. Zoom out on the nav map now so that more local sectors are displayed. Notice that as you zoom out, more sectors come into view, as well as other objects in those sectors. You can quickly zoom in on one of the nearby sectors by right mouse clicking inside its sector box. You can also scroll and zoom in on a nearby sector by simply holding the mouse pointer over the sector box and scrolling the mouse wheel up. Try this now by zooming in on the sector that is up one and right one of the current sector you are in. The coordinates for the sector to zoom in on are SX3501, SY0, and SZ-1799. To help guide you, the local in-sector coordinates and sector coordinates for the location you are pointing to on the map are displayed on the lower left side of the navigation console. If you zoom in on the wrong sector, just zoom out and try again. Good. You can also scroll from sector to sector by clicking on the up, down, left, or right buttons at the edges of the nav map. These directional buttons also work at any zoom level. Use any of the available nav map movement control options to return to sector SX3500, SY0, and SZ-1800. In addition to zooming in on a sector with the right-click option, you can also plot a nav point directly to an object by right-clicking on its map icon. Test the right-click object selection option now by right-clicking on the asteroid field icon in sector SX3500, SY0, and SZ-1800. Good. Be careful not to engage the jump drive immediately after plotting jump points directly to planets, asteroids, or moons, as that can result in colliding with them. If you need to jump close to one of those objects, plot the jump point to it by right-clicking on its icon, then move the jump point to one side or the other by left-clicking on an alternate location near it. It will take some practice with jump drive navigation to safely arrive close to objects, so it's a good idea to invest the time to learn how to consistently plot close proximity jump points as you build your navigation skill set. Plotting safe and precise jump points quickly under pressure will become important as you travel to more dangerous regions of space.
So here, obviously jumping is a bit more complex than just holding down B. Besides being able to plot your own courses, if you need to do an emergency jump to escape, if you jump just blindly, of course space is big and it's open, and the odds of you hitting something are pretty small. But as you see here, even though I want to go to this asteroid field, it's not wise for me to jump directly into it. As you're jumping, you will hit obstacles between where you are and where you're going. So moving your jump point off to the side or in front of a good distance is actually recommended.
There are several different types of objects that the navigation sensor system displays icons and information for. Jump gates provide shortcuts to other regions of space and are displayed on the map with purple icons. Gate destinations are displayed at the bottom of the map when you hold the mouse pointer over their icons. Planet icons will include a name and economy type value, which lets you know what items may be in high demand or high supply for the area. It's important to use this information to help formulate optimal trade routes and get an idea of what to expect as you travel. Asteroids will appear as rock clusters, while station hangars will be gray in color.
Now, in that regards, jump gates, it's very similar to the concept where Star Citizen has with wormholes, jumping through those. So, very similar mechanics here in that regards as well.
On the left side of the console menu under the waypoints heading is the autopilot option. The autopilot will fly your ship to the selected nav point. If the location is in sector, the autopilot will fly at regular speed. If the location is in a different sector, it will automatically plot multiple jump points to reach the selected destination. Below the autopilot button is the ping option, which marks your current position on the nav map with the green box. In multiplayer, clicking on ping will allow other players to see the marker on their nav map as well, if they are in the same sector. You can also broadcast your position to players in other sectors with a text message using the transpose button on the lower right corner of the navigation console.
Service beacons, essentially.
Below the ping button is the map log button. Directly below the map log button is the add to log button, which will store the currently selected nav point in the map log. Click on the map log button to display the log now. You can save important locations in your map log and enter a description for each log entry to help you remember the locations you save. The sector coordinates as well as the local coordinates are stored for future reference. If the stored location is within nav range, its location will appear on the nav map with blue brackets, along with its corresponding number. Simply left-click on a listed location in this menu to plot a nav point to the location it contains. You can also optionally right-click on a location to remove it from the map log. Click on the nav map button to return to the map mode now.
Now, this game is actually very heavy on exploration. As you can see when we were looking at the map, how far you can zoom out, and you can keep going further than that. And there's different sectors of space, like different regions, different solar systems and things like that. So as you get out there and explore, you may find wrecks, relics, discoveries, all sorts of different things, mining locations, and having the ability to scan them down, log them into your system for later usage is important. So when I think of, like, I have several different exploration ships in Star Citizen. I have, of course, the Terrapin, I have the Karak, and I have the 600i exploration version for different levels of exploring as I want to do out in the verse. So when they have here that the log, it lets you go ahead and save the coordinates, enter a description of what those coordinates are. That's definitely something we're going to need to see in Star Citizen in the future.
Below the Add to Log option is the Set Lock button, which will set the nav point to your current location. With this option, you can quickly lock in coordinates for the location you are at, so you can store them in the map log. These log options are useful tools to help you keep track of important locations, such as hidden objects, trade hotspots, or to simply store notes linked to coordinates in the game. The Local Points menu on the left side of the console display also provides a way to select jump points to specific locations in the sector. If the location is a planet, the computer will plot a jump point in the direction of the planet, but far enough away to avoid colliding with it or burning up in the atmosphere upon arrival. For most other object types, the system will plot a jump point much closer. It is recommended that you use these menu options until you're able to manually plot safe jump points near objects in space. On the right side of the navigation console are the map control options. Zoom in and zoom out can be used as alternatives to the mouse wheel for increasing or decreasing the level of sector zoom. As mentioned earlier, the rear view button lets you view the nav map from behind, allowing you to gauge the elevation of objects in range. The slide mode option lets you pan the map around using the mouse pointer. Click on this option now to see how this works. Click and hold the left mouse button on the map to move it around with the pointer. Notice that you can pan to other sectors in the area and view any detectable objects in those sectors. Click on the Select Mode button to return to the main map mode when you're finished testing the slide mode. The 3D mode is also available, which will allow you to rotate the map and view details in a more three-dimensional way. This can be useful to gauge elevation and distance. Click on the 3D mode button now to enable this option. Like the slide mode option, you can also click and hold the left mouse button on the nav map to pan it around. This mode also supports mouse wheel zoom control, so you can view more sectors around the centered viewpoint. Click on the Select Mode button to return to the main map mode. If you need more precision for plotting navigation points, or want improved legibility for the various text modes in icon proximity, click on the Zoom Map button at the bottom of the Map Controls menu. This will double the map's size and remove various console graphics for a larger and more unobstructed view. Test this now by clicking on the Zoom Map button. The mouse wheel and right-click sector zooming options work in this map mode as well. Click on the normal map button to return to the original zoom level. Below map controls are the map mode options. The text on button will activate text details on the nav map for objects in the area. When several objects are close together on the nav map, it can be difficult to read some of the text, so you can use the button in the middle to sort text details by category. You can also optionally zoom the map for more spacing. At the bottom of the map mode options is the quadrant button. This option will activate the quadrant map mode, allowing you to view system information for the entire Evochron quadrant. Click on the quadrant button now to enable this mode. In this mode, you can see all of the primary charted systems in Evochron. You can hold the mouse pointer over a system to view details about its economic status and territory control status. If you left-click on the map, the selected sector coordinates will be logged into the destination position sector fields. You can also right-click on a displayed system to load nav map details remotely and switch to the local nav map mode. When the quadrant mode is enabled, 2 new buttons will appear under the options menu at the bottom. The territory button will let you view the current territory control conditions in a 500 by 500 sector grid pattern. The economy button will let you view the economic conditions in a 500 by 500 sector grid pattern. At the bottom right corner of the navigation console is the current territory control level for the region you are in.
Now, as you can see, there are quite a few systems here, and each one of them are massive with plenty of things to do.
That concludes this section on the navigation console. The next section will cover the build console.
Alright, so I think that's good enough for now. Let me close this out here. Now, the thing about this game, and we're going to get into it eventually as we move into showing off missions, combat, and stuff like that. Because of the way they set up the inertial and the way they've set up the the normal IDS, combat in this game can run very much like Independence War, where you're just doing the vector and drifting combat. But with IDS on, you get a very much, to a large degree, kind of a normal jet fighter kind of experience. As you can see here, that it's trying to keep up. Now, obviously, I can out-rotate to a little bit, but you see the rotations aren't, they're not crazy. I mean, they're pretty solid, but if I rotate, it just doesn't instantly stop. I have to counter. There's a sense of real momentum here. Now, the only thing this game lacks, it doesn't lack it because of lore. I think the lore, there's inertial dampeners, so there's no G-forces on the player inside the ship. Not that I've ever experienced. But the pacing is good, and you have all the information you need, and the mechanics are just wonderful to play with. So next time we get into the playlist, I'll be out there doing missions, but I wanted to introduce you to what we're looking at on the screen, and I want you to see, because this is primarily a Star Citizen channel, and so I'm introducing a lot of this stuff because I kind of want you to get a feel for other things that are out there if this is kind of a new genre for you, and kind of see what, like, this one man who made this game has done, and how you have everything that you need, all the information you need, right at your fingertips. Done in a very readable, very clear, concise, and consolidated way. And I point this stuff out because as CIG asks for feedback, looking at things like this will help your frame of reference, because the pacing here that they have would work well with turrets. It would work well with any control functionality. It works well with stick. It works well with mouse. It works well with everything. There's no need for separate modes or separate special controls based on a certain controller. It's just a solid game. All right, guys. Well, I'll quit my diatribe right about there, and we'll pick it up next time on the playlist. I might play just a little bit to get a little bit of money built up, so you don't have to watch me grind through the starting stuff. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching this, guys.